School Trustees, if you would please stand and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1.03, adoption of the agenda. We're going to have propose an amendment to the agenda due to the late arrival of the updated technology plan under item 6.02. They had insufficient time to review it, and the administration asks that the agenda be amended to withdraw it for consideration at a later date. Is there a motion to amend the agenda to withdraw 6.02 from consideration tonight?
I move to remove it from the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. It's now recommended that the agenda for the May 22nd, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be adopted as presented and amended.
Move for adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving into the recognition section of the agenda, item 2.01, recognition of retirees. We're going to go, Mrs. Parks and I are going to come up here. We're going to read off the name of retirees, and those who are here, if you please come up. All right. Retirees for this year are Tricia Noel, 10 years. She doesn't
What did she say?
Rendall,
What did it say?
She said she was in Florida.
Susan Papaleo, 15 years. Kathleen Nolan, 16 years. It's like when we do perfect attendance. Joseph Sinat, 17 years. Congratulations. And if you'd like to go over there, we're going to take a picture. Sandra O'Connell, 22 years. Pamela Driscoll, 23 years. Kenneth Horvath, 23 years. Kathy Hanshoe, 24 years. Thomas Mikelski, 24 years. Allison Kirchner, 25 years. Florida. Rebecca Sanchez, 27 years. Charlene McKay, 27 and a half years. Elaine Lang, 28 years. Kathy Lazenby, 28 years. Susan Piper, 30 years.
Susan, you better turn around. Your husband wants to get
Big T. Thanks, Dean.
Kelly Jobin, 31 years.
Oh, so happy for you.
Janine Reynolds, 31 years. And David Weber. One more recognition item here, Teacher of the Year. Item 2.02. School City of Mishawaka continues to work the Mishawaka way, which has a primary theme of creating a culture of excellence. Tonight, we honor two of our own valued employees that have worked diligently to collaborate with all stakeholders in our community to help further promote student success. School City of Mishawaka followed the model adopted by the state of Indiana in recognizing an elementary and secondary Teacher of the Year. School City's elementary Teacher of the Year, Nicole Brown, is a kindergarten teacher at Beeger Elementary. School City's secondary Teacher of the Year, Matthew Rendall, is the Mishawaka High School broadcast and interactive media teacher and director of the Mishawaka Network. Both teachers are highly involved in their respective schools and are admired by their peers for their dedication to the profession. Please join me in congratulating School City of Mishawaka's Teachers of the Year, Nicole Brown and Matthew Rendall.
Come on up.
Hey, come on up. Do you want to say anything? Or Jerome?
She didn't know there was speaking involved.
Or Courtney, principals?
You want to say something, Matt?
Yes.
Sure.
Earlier this week, I was able to go into Nicole's class as part of radio and TV, and I had a couple students go with me and record for her class. And kindergarten teachers cannot get paid enough money. It is impossible. I had kids, just around cameras, like, oh, what's this? It was pretty cool. Can I tell one quick story? Do you mind? So she brought a couple kids out and we did some interviews. And while I was there, probably an hour and a half, and while I was there, kids would turn stuff in and they would do stuff, and she would say the same thing to them. And to me, it was weird because I'm not in with little kids all the time, but she would say this thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but she would say, kiss your brain. Is that right? Yes. And I was like, I'm going to ask these kids to see if they know what that means. Are they just saying it to say it? Or do they just hear it? And every one of the 5 kids that I talked to said the same thing. And it was that she thinks we're smart. And she knows we're smart. And it was really cool to hear that from these little kids. So congratulations. It was just weird to me. And I don't want it to say, it was really cool. But thank you guys. It's been really cool. It's been a fun year. I don't want to speak for Nicole, but it's really humbling. It's cool to see a lot of great teachers and a lot of cool things going on in our schools. I put a lot of work in this year. It's been fun, though. And so thank you guys for this honor. And I got that paperwork for the state thing, and I think I'm going to hand it off to somebody else.
Better not.
No, I'm kidding. I love paperwork. So thank you guys. Nicole?
Thank you.
Well, I have not had the pleasure of being in Mr. Rendall's classroom, but while he was in mine videotaping me, he was assuring and just telling me wonderful things, which was enlightening, and thank you. I am honestly very honored. I am honored because there are so many amazing educators in our school corporation. I see educators every single day ensuring student success, and I'm very humbled because I love what I do. I truly work hard every single day to make sure that students can learn the necessary tools to become lifelong learners and to become powerful citizens in our community and to make the world a better place. And I'm very thankful. And I'm still overwhelmed, so I'm sorry.
Well, but Ms. Brown, we also love what you do, so thank you. Nicole and Matt will also be recognized at the Celebration for Excellence on May 28th and will be in contention for the State Teacher of the Year. And tonight we have one more recognition for them. Eric Mims, president of the Mishawaka Lions Club, is here to present awards to Nicole and Matt. Mr. Mims?
Thank you. The Mishawaka Lions Club wants to recognize both of your achievements here and congratulate you. The Mishawaka Lions Club has, our mission is also to support education, and we want to show our thanks to your service to the community with a special stipend check here. So if I could give that to you guys, I'd love to do that now. Thank you.
All right, we're going to be moving into the business part of the agenda now. So if there's anybody who is here just for the recognition pieces, we can pause for a moment if you'd like to make an orderly leave. All right. Item 3.01, representatives of the PTA. Is there anyone from the PTA? Yes.
Thank you, board members. Mishawaka PTA Council, we are having our Reflections Dinner on the 30th at John Young Middle School at 6 o'clock. We have a lot of children from all of the elementaries that placed. We're going to be having Fazoli's, so we invite you all to come and see all the students that won awards. And we will also be giving out our PTA awards that were won at state, and we'll be presenting those and also introducing the new PTA officers as well. So thank you.
Well, we want to thank you for the lovely reception tonight for our retirees. Thank you.
Yeah.
Item 3.02, representatives of school employees. Item 3.03, representatives of the Mishawaka Education Foundation. Mr. Wayne.
Greetings from the Mishawaka Education Foundation Board of Directors. Jane Wright's the Executive Director. Matt Carroll's the President. My name's Chuck Wayne. I'm a member of that board. And it says here I got to tell you something about myself. I don't know why Jane did this, but I got to follow her directions. And tell you about my relationship with School City. I taught 40 years at Mishawaka High School. Retired in 1998, so that makes 21 years. I can't believe it. Retired. I can't believe it. And I spent 27 years on the Mishawaka High School Building Trades Board, 4 years as president. And I spent 8 years on the school board, 2 years as president. But I'm here mainly to tell you the exciting things that are going on with MEF and 3 important things that we'd like to relate to you. And the first is the annual Made in Mishawaka Luncheon that's going to be on June 12th at the Holiday Inn Mishawaka Conference Center from 12 to 1:30. So mark your calendars for that. The luncheon will feature Mishawaka Education Foundation's grant recipients, student artists, and the Made in Mishawaka honorees are Al Smith and the late David and Rosemary Spalding. And Dr. Dean Spiker is going to make some comments, and he's going to introduce the new superintendent. That'll be something you all should see, so make your arrangements for that activity. There are invitations left with Jessica. The second thing we'd like to announce that the annual Mishawaka High School all-class reunion at the FOP on July 13th, 2019 at 7 p.m. And this being the second annual, the first annual turned out very well. So that's something, if you're a graduate of Mishawaka High School, and maybe not if you're a graduate of Mishawaka High School. Again, that's July 13th. And the third and last thing is the Mishawaka Education Foundation Chip In for Education. That's a golf outing. And brochures are hot off the press. Get your fourth of them together for August 5th at Morris Park Country Club. And let Shar Spiker, who's the chairman of that, it was very successful last year. And so we're looking forward to having another successful golf outing. Thank you. Be sure to attend all 3 of these activities.
Thank you, Chuck. The next item on the agenda is 3.04, General Public. I've been informed that no one has signed up to speak to the board, so I'll move on to the section 4 of the agenda, the consent agenda. Item 4.01, approval of the minutes of the May 8, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees. It is recommended that the minutes of the May 8, 2019 regular meeting of the board be approved as presented. Item 4.02, approval of bill warrants and payroll. It is recommended that the bill warrants and payroll in the amount of $2,677,370.18 be approved for payment from the appropriate funds. Item 4.03, approval of financial report. It is recommended that the financial report dated April 19, 2019 be approved as presented. Item 4.04, approval of field trip requests. It is recommended that the field trip requests be approved as listed and documented. Item 4.05, approval of fundraiser requests. It is recommended that the fundraiser requests be approved and listed as documented. Item 4.06, approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 5.01, personnel report. Mr. Rickler?
President Curry, Dr. Spiker, members of the board, it is recommended that the personnel report dated May 22nd, 2019 be approved as presented.
Move for approval. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5.02, recommendation on senior leader and building leader staffing appointments for 2019-2020 contract year. Dr. Spiker?
A senior leadership vacancy as Director of Human Resources and Student Services exists for the 2019-20 school year. At this time, I am pleased to make a recommendation on my own behalf as well as on behalf of Mr. Wayne Barker, Superintendent-elect, that Jerome Calderone be appointed as Director of Human Resources and Student Services for the 2019-20 school year. So that would be the first action for the board. And then I will read out the recommendation on the second action.
All right, let's move on the first action item. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We look forward to working with you here in central office, Mr. Calderone.
The second motion is more complex. It involves a series of recommendations. Your yellow sheet of all your sheets here, the yellow sheet that you have is the one that should lay out the recommendation. Mishawaka High School leadership changes proposed for 2019-2020 effective July 1, 2019. First, recommend that John Ross be appointed MHS principal and be offered a 2-year contract for 2019-2020 and 2020-21. Mr. Ross will mentor Chad Brew as a potential MHS principal candidate and Jessica Mann as a prospective MHS associate principal candidate. Chad and Jessica's future MHS leadership roles will be determined by their performance and professional growth in these leadership roles. Second, Recommend that Chad Brew be appointed Associate Principal for the 2019-20 school year. Chad will serve in dual roles of the 9th grade Dean and Associate Principal during the 2019-20 school year. An additional leader will be added to provide additional talent and know-how to the freshman transition team during the 2019-20 school year. Sean Steinkellner will continue his role as a dean, but will assume responsibility for leading academic competition K-12 beginning in the 2019-20 school year. This past year, Jessica Mann has had responsibility for both early college and also for academic competition. It's too heavy a load for one person, and so Jessica is going to be giving up that leadership role to Sean Steinkellner to take that on for the 2019-20 school year. Jessica Mann will continue her role as a dean and lead the early college program at MHS. She will also spend time with Mr. Ross and be assigned to some associate or principal duties. Dave Troyer will continue as assistant principal, dean of one class, lead the PBIS program system at MHS, and will assist with the SCM corporate PBIS effort. We're ending up with the same number of people, with the exception that there is one that is not being appointed this evening. There will be one that will be recommended to you in the future to make up for the 9th grade dean that we're losing in terms of a position. So you will see that on a future personnel item as Mr. Ross and his team work through who's going to be part of their freshman transition team and all of that. So at this time, I would recommend for your consideration the list that I have just shared with you. And I would also suggest that once you have taken your action, that you give Mr. Ross an opportunity to say anything that he would like to say.
Good or bad?
Good or bad?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommended building level assignments. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Ross?
This is the end of my 20th year at Mishawaka High School. I came in after 24 years as a naval officer, flying reconnaissance missions, those sorts of things. So this is, if I go out these next couple to 4 years, I will be here longer than I've been any place ever in my career life. So I will tell you this, I love Mishawaka High School. It's a challenging demographic, but they're all great kids. Even the ones that are challenging are great kids. And I think our grade level concept that's still evolving and growing is a way to better serve those kids and have more of them not just graduate and be successful, but for more of them to graduate at a higher level and be successful. So I think we've got a lot of challenges, but the board, the superintendent's office, all of this has been profoundly supportive to making Mishawaka a great school, and I don't see that changing, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that work. So thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to your stewardship at Mishawaka High School. Number 3?
503?
No, actually.
Oh, number 3, I'm sorry. Yeah, action number 3, the superintendent and the superintendent-elect request school board approval to place the above appointees into the 2018-20 board-approved salary ranges effective July 1, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item 5.03, recommendation on senior leader restructuring in curriculum and instruction department. Dr. Spiker?
Much has changed in terms of curriculum and instruction, strategic initiatives, and personnel since the Board of School Trustees approved the CI Leadership Organizational Chart in 2015. The major game changer led by senior leaders in the C&I department in 2018-19 is Learning by Design the Mishawaka Way. This strategic vision initiative will change the way that C&I department collaborates with teachers, students, principals within SCM for many years. The major benefit of executing this initiative in the reorganization of leadership for C&I, curriculum and instruction, will be student learning. Senior staff leaders in 2018-19 in the C&I department numbered 4. The proposed C&I department reorganization is also 4. Assuming that Title IV funds will continue to be available, and we believe they will be, and dedicated to one of these 4 senior leaders, the fiscal impact in increased salaries in 2019-2020 is $23,000. The benefit increase will be minimal. As you will see after I make the recommendation, we're recommending that 3 of the 4 positions be filled. The 4th position will be advertised after board action tonight, and then we will be considering candidates from within the school system as well as those outside the school system for the position of Curriculum Integration Specialist, the position that was created by the operating levy in 2016, and the position that Katie Stocksell has served well in for the past 2 years. So action number 1, the superintendent and the superintendent-elect recommend that the attached proposed curriculum and instruction department organizational chart be approved, dated on May 22, and it's this document right here that you have before you and is up there on the slide. It is the May 22nd organizational chart that fits the positions that we will be recommending. So this would be the first action, approving this reorganization.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the recommended organizational chart. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The second action is the superintendent and superintendent-elect recommend the following curriculum and instruction department personnel assignments for the 2019-20 school year. Sarah Hickel as Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Katie Stocksell, Director of Teaching and Learning, and Corey Laban, Director of School Services and Assessment. The Curriculum Integration Specialist will be recommended for school board action after interviews.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Move for motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation is made. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I don't know if Sarah had to leave, but is she still here?
She's here.
Okay. I knew she was here earlier, but Sarah and Katie and Corey, why don't you stand up? You deserve a round of applause for your good work. Sarah, would you like to say anything on behalf of your team moving forward?
I don't want to speak for them, but I think they do share my sentiment, and that is, amongst a lot of other feelings, just entirely humbled that all of you have entrusted us in such important work and given us such an amazing team to work with. 3 years ago, when you put your faith in me and hired me, I thought, what an exciting time to join School City of Mishawaka. And I was so humbled by the people that I would get to be joining. And 3 years later, what an exciting time to be joining School City of Mishawaka. So what an exciting time for us. There are so many things on our horizon, and particularly in curriculum and instruction, the work that we've begun with Learning by Design. We are so excited to be able to continue that work and to see the fruit that that yields. So thank you.
Thank you.
The third action is the superintendent-elect requests school board approval to place the above appointees and the curriculum integration specialist, when employed, into the 2018-20 board-approved salary ranges effective July 1, 2019.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we're moving into the Curriculum, Instruction, and Technology section of the agenda. Item 6.01, approval of additions to career technical education inventory. Mr. Ross?
Well, fortunately for the board, I don't have any spreadsheets to show you. Okay. But back in January, we were talking about graduation pathways, how the career technical education pathways feed into that. And at the time, I mentioned that we had the program that we're trying to work out with Legacy CNA to create a CNA program at the high school. So we're in the end game of doing that, and I've got to make a May 31st deadline with the Career Center to get this stuff forwarded on to state with their approval, which is not necessarily a done deal because we're really competing with them to offer that sort of a program. All right. Now, the 4 courses that are listed on there, one of them is Advanced Accounting, has nothing to do with the CNA program. That's just a transitional situation where the federal government provides funding for CTE through Perkins grants. They go to the states divvy it up to us. All right. One of the things that they've been doing over the last several years is evolving that to be a situation where we are really concentrating on the advanced courses only, with the obvious assumption being that you're going to do the introductory classes before you can do the advanced classes. So what they've got is this, rather convoluted structure saying, well, Perkins 4 is what we're currently working with, and that's the full array of all of the various CTE classes, introductory as well as advanced. Perkins 5, which comes into applicability for the incoming freshman class, is the only process that can be used after that, and that's only the advanced classes. So with that said, Perkins 4, to get a finance or advanced or accounting pathway, you didn't have to do advanced accounting. Well, Perkins 5, you do. So that's why that's being added. The career, fashion and textiles career, a similar circumstance, that since they're being more specific about what's happening starting in the coming school year, we have to be more specific about what those pathways look like. The last 2 are, in fact, the Health Science Careers 1 and Health Science Careers 2 classes that the way we're trying to structure it, again, with Legacy CNA program, is that in 1 semester of a half-day program, a kid should be capable of taking the CNA licensing test, and not with 100% likelihood that they're going to pass, but with a very high likelihood they're going to pass. And I think, again, as I mentioned before, the CNA program, I think, is going to be a great addition for 2 things. For some kids, it might be a great way to make a living and provide a service to those that need it. For others, it's going to be a starter job. It's going to be a way of seeing, hey, do I really want to get more involved in the health care industry and go on to stronger, more rigorous programs that lead to higher qualifications. So again, once and Ms. Stoltz, remember, you're going to get a sign for me here, okay? Anyway, so there's a couple papers that, will be hopefully signed by you here before too much longer, matched up with some artifacts, send that off to Elkhart. Actually, I'm probably going to hand carry it to make sure that we don't lose any time on the deadlines. And providing, they're not going to have a problem with the first two, but the health, again, we're competing with them because they run a CNA program also, but it takes 2 years to complete. Ours is going to be done in 1 semester. Well, I think that's efficient, all right? And what I would like to also add to all of that is that I think there's a real opportunity to where we might be able to use that for select students in a grade 13 category, those that maybe didn't quite get where they needed to be employable perhaps upon graduation, or in some cases that may be a way to complete a graduation pathway that they wouldn't otherwise be able to complete, because the number of credits they would earn would meet the criteria under Perkins 5 criteria to be a graduate. So I think it's a win-win, and I'm hoping that Elkhart isn't going to stonewall us on approving it.
John, isn't there a large market for CNAs?
There's a great demand, and Legacy CNA, they can't produce enough people, which is one of the reasons why they want to partner with us. But right now, they have an amazing pass rate, which I think the last few times has been like 100%. But they're also working with young adults that, need a qualification and need a job and, need to be able to do this. I don't know this with certainty. I heard that the 2-year program at the Career Center had a 40% pass rate. Well, that doesn't sound great. That sounds okay. All right, so I would like to see something where our 1 semester program not only serves those kids and serves the community by producing more people that are needed for this career path, but also that, if we end up with a 70-80% pass rate, or perhaps even better, there's no downside to it because the kid's still going to get high school credit, they're still going to qualify and progress toward graduation, and with any luck, they're going to get an actual state license to be a CNA.
I'm wondering if one of the ways for us to position the CNA program with the Elkhart Career Center is to use the Regional Cities Initiative, which is heavily on the workforce side, and we just need to think a little more about that and how we might do that. But I want a yes.
Well, and so do I. So the deadline for us to get it to them is May 31st. I'm planning on seeing them Thursday or Friday, and if I get assurances it's going to be a yes, then we're done.
Fine.
All right. Otherwise, I'm going to call in the big guns, which might be you.
Good luck. I'm going to move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the additions to the CTE inventory. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.02, which was deleted by
603.
earlier motion of the board. Item 6.03, presentation of the School City of Mishawaka Whole Child Workshop, June 18th and 19th, 2019. Ms. Nicole.
President Curry, members of the board, Dr. Spiker, and guests. As most of you are aware, last year we held our first inaugural Whole Child Workshop at Mishawaka High School. We had over 325 people register for the event. It was a one-day event. Great success of gathering community partners and educators from over 14 districts in the state of Indiana to meet at the table to talk about the needs of the whole child. Because of that success, we have expanded it to a 2-day workshop this year. So we're very excited to be able to offer even more learning opportunities, more variety. We will kick off day 1 with Chad Towner from St. Joe Health, as our key sponsor of the event. And he'll talk about the partnership with School City of Mishawaka and the advantages that that has brought for both our children as well as for the hospital itself. And we have 2 keynote speakers, one each day. The first keynote speaker on day 1 will address her work with what's called the Kindness Project, something that has received national attention. She's published a book and is a TEDx speaker about this project, and it's a project that's actually been implemented at Beeger School. So we're really excited to be able to show that connection to her work. Day 2 then, we'll have a new keynote speaker. His name is Chase Milkey. He is from Michigan. He is also a nationally known educator, and he will share his work, which is pretty diverse. We also, on day 2, will have a spotlight speaker, Christy Berger, who is the newly appointed this year Director of MTSS for the Indiana Department of Education, will be joining us to talk about the work of that department and the newly released social emotional learning curriculum. So we're really excited to be able to have her and some of her staff with us. Because of the amazing support that the community has offered us, we have at this time over 50 presenters, and we currently have over 80 breakout sessions that we'll be able to offer. So a lot of variety, thinking about all those topics that are particular to the whole child. The list goes on and on, as you can imagine. You can find them on the website at thewholechildin.com. But some ones that really particularly met the demands and the feedback that we got from last year. We tried to look at what people wanted and be able to address that. So we've added a lot more on neuroscience. That was something that was requested. So we have applied educational neuroscience and discipline, brain development and skill building, family support and engagement, which connects with our school improvement process that we've implemented, whole school, whole community, whole child, music therapy, youth advocacy, asset development, restorative justice, trauma triggers, and it goes on and on and on. So we're absolutely thrilled. Because of the support of our partnership with St. Joe Health and the support from all of you, we will be able to offer, again, free admission for all SCM employees, because we value this work so much and we want to support them with their learning. So they will have free registration. We will also continue our mission of trying to keep it as low cost as it possibly can to get as many educators to the event to impact children in all districts. And so we'll offer a discounted code to all districts that want to sponsor that event for their teachers and their staff to be able to participate. So I have placed the paper copy for all of you, but I'll also send it to you digitally. And for all of you in the audience, any of you that are willing to share the message and encourage people to attend, whether they're SCM educators, community partners, or people in other districts, we would greatly appreciate it. This mission is important, and we've been able to make an impact, but there's a lot more work to be done and a lot more learning for us to be able to impact that work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eckel. I think we've all heard very good things about last year's workshop, and in the presentations of the schools, I've noticed that a lot of initiatives have been introduced that the teachers got the ideas from the workshop last year, and they're making a big impact with the children.
We got a lot of great feedback, ways that they were able to turn around and instantly implement something where they saw success, which is what I think any of us, when we go to professional learning, want to leave with, something that we know we can use readily. Sadly, our most popular presenter from last year, President Curry's wife, won't be with us this year, but she's promised to be back again. So we were able to bring back a lot of the presenters, and they're willing to give us even more of their time and talent. So it's been very nice.
Well, thank you for organizing this.
Thank you.
Item 6.04, approval of the School City of Mishawaka Code of Conduct and Student Staff Support Systems Work Group Leadership, and Work Group members. Dr. Spiker.
One area of focus within the School City of Mishawaka for 2019-2020 school year will be to create a work group to rethink and create student codes of conduct that fit the development levels of SCM students. Another component of the work group study will be to review existing and new student staff support systems. The work plan has 6 goals. The first goal is to create codes of conduct for separate one for elementary, separate one for middle school, and a separate one for high school. We currently have a code of conduct, and I'm not sure how much attention you've paid to our code of conduct, even though you are supposed to approve it every year. Typically, it shows up in a student handbook or it shows up someplace. We want to change that. We want to be able to present an elementary code of conduct that fits children of that developmental age. In other words, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old to have the same consequences for some action because their intent is probably totally different, because obviously their age and development is very different. So we're going to be suggesting that this work group create a code of conduct that fits elementary, a code of conduct that fits middle school, and a code of conduct that fits high school. Secondly, the other thing that we want to do is to allow students, parents, and staff to vet the proposed codes of conduct. Third, we want to identify and execute student support systems with fidelity. The 2 most obvious student support systems that we have going on are what we call PBBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Support System, and MTSS, Multi-Tiered Support System. But we also have a lot of other initiatives going on in individual schools. For example, we have zones of regulation that are going on in several of our elementary schools. We also have Leader in Me that is going on in at least one of our elementary schools. So what we need to do is to figure out which systems that we think are most impactful or most effective, and then we need to implement those across the school system with fidelity if, in fact, we believe they make a difference in terms of student behavior and those kinds of things. We also, like other school systems, you may have read the newspaper in the past several days, there are disruptive students. And there are disruptive students at all grade levels. And so we need to have some kind of an alternative to be able to deal with the small number of disruptive students that really do not fit the learning environment of a classroom in the school system. So we're looking to partner with the court system. We're looking to partner with other agencies in the community that can provide support, and also realistically, the school system is probably going to have to step up and make some major investments in terms of solutions to deal with some of these students, whatever those might end up being. Number 5, create a professional development plan for staff for implementing the student support systems. And then 6, creating a communications plan, and so on. The timeline kind of goes like this. In the next 30 days, the idea is to kick this work group off. Mr. Barker is very much in tune with this. He'll be meeting with Mr. Welling and myself on Friday, and we're going to be talking about a strategy for getting this rolled out and getting it started. We also then think that between June and next year in January, that the work group will do their work, and there will be subgroups that'll do work, and they will vet each other's work, and all of this will go on. So the goal is by February of next year is to have a lot of these initiatives, a lot of these strategies in place so they can be implemented. And then by next March is to be able to bring to the board these codes of conduct for review with the board and to vet them, and then be in a position for the 2020-21 school year to implement the codes of conduct as well as the support systems for the school system, and to have these alternative placements available for students that just don't fit anyplace else. So you see listed down here a list of people who are a part of this, recommended to be a part of this work group. And so I would like to recommend that you adopt this work plan and that we get started.
Move for approval. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the work group and work plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I need to add that Amy Foley from the Mishawaka Education Association has been very helpful in terms of suggesting teachers to serve on this committee. And so this is a joint effort among all of us in terms of addressing this challenge that we face in the school system.
All right, now moving into the business and operations section of the agenda, item 7.01, acceptance of donations. Dr. Spiker.
22-inch over-the-ear headphones valued at $264 from DonorsChoose.org to the kindergarten classrooms at Liberty Elementary School. One Silhouette Cameo 3-starter bundle valued at $280 from DonorsChoose.org to Liberty Elementary School for creative displays and student projects. $200 from Hums PTO to the Nature Club at Hums Elementary School. 2 activity tables valued at $500 from the Mishawaka Penn Harris Public Library to be used in the library at Hums Elementary School. $818 from Mishawaka Lions Club to John Young Middle School for National History Day. We recommend that you accept and recognize these generous donations.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the donations with appreciation. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item 7.02, Indiana Service Agreement with Go Solutions Group, Inc. Mrs. Michaelos.
President Curry, Dr. Spiker, members of the board, this is a contract that I bring back on an annual basis. We are allowed to bill Medicaid for services provided to students attending school, like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language services, and the transportation that gets them to and from school on the days of their service. So you can see the amounts listed below on the agenda that depending on how many students are Medicaid eligible during that school year and the amount of times they receive their services, the amount fluctuates. I actually got the year-to-date in the last week, and I think as of mid-May, we're about at $179,000 for this year. So what this means is that we hire a clerical person who actually enters all of the information into an online system to bill for Medicaid, and then all of the money that we get from Medicaid is put into a fund that we use to support educational services, materials, etc. So the recommendation is that the School Board of Trustees approve the Indiana Service Agreement with Go Solutions as presented the period of July 1 of 19 to June 30 of 2020, and that it's recommended that the board, the school board president and secretary be authorized to sign the agreement.
Move for approval. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. All in favor, or any discussion on the motion?
Do you have problems getting to collect Medicaid?
Absolutely none. So we have had no problems with this agency. I've actually looked at other agencies to look at the percentage, to look at how many school corporations they represent. This particular company, Go Solutions, I would say represents the lion's share of school corporations in Indiana. So customer service is wonderful. We have high expectations for our people entering their services. So we get checks in a timely fashion on a monthly basis because we would much rather have that money in our coffers than in their coffers. So it's actually been a pretty seamless system for what I would call relatively free money. So.
Good thing we're not in Illinois.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Or no, it has. Yes, it has. We've had any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 7.03, approval of First Steps Memorandum of Understanding for the transition for Part C to Part B services. Mrs. Michaelos?
This is another MOU that I bring on an annual basis. As a school corporation, we have a legal obligation to provide special education services to students to have them be in place and ready by on or before their 3rd birthday. So many of our students work with First Steps, which are services provided from birth to the age of 3. They offer services in the home, some therapies, family support. So as a student approaches that year of 3, we go to a transition meeting, usually in the student's home, meet the parents, talk about what do we think the child is going to need at that preschool level at the age of 3. And then we have the students come in, we evaluate, we write a plan if they meet the eligibility criteria in the state of Indiana as they turn 3. And then usually what happens great for us is they start attending our preschool program. So it's a win-win for those young kids and for our program. So this is an ongoing MOU. You can see on the first page the number of school corporations that are listed. So it is an obligation that we have for those young students turning 3 years old. They did make some updates in March. They were minimal, but the contract or the MOU doesn't really expire until July 1. So the recommendation is that the Board of School Trustees approve the Memorandum of Understanding with First Steps, and that it could be signed by the Director of Exceptional Learners.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7.04, recommendation to approve application for 2019 Common School Construction Loan. Mr. Newman?
President Curry, Dr. Spiker, members of the board. This whole thing came about with a request to Mrs. Faulkner to take a look at our elementary schools and give me an assessment, or give us an assessment of the carpet in those buildings. We originally had asked principals what some of the worst rooms in their buildings were, knowing that at the time anyway we didn't have any large amount of money to take care of any large projects, and thinking we might do one classroom at a time and just try to chip away at it that way. But it became pretty apparent as we went out and looked at some of this carpet and some of these different areas that that was neither a smart move or a cost-effective move to do it that way. So actually on May 8th, Dr. Spiker presented and the board approved an agreement with Abonmarch to provide professional services related to a carpet replacement project at Battelle, Emmons, LaSalle, and Twin Branch Elementary Schools. You'll see here in the documentation for the loan application that I've also included an amount for HUMS. I believe Dr. Spiker indicated on May 8th that there was remaining money from the $5 million first mortgage bond sale of 2018. For HUMS Elementary, we've sort of just been waiting because we wanted to make sure that we had solved the flooding issue, which we do believe we've solved. While that money is there, I wasn't quite sure that it would be enough to replace all the carpet, so I did include an amount here for HUMS as well. The total amount of the construction is about $962,000. The remaining amount of the loan would be used to pay Abonmarch. So we are requesting permission to apply for the 2019 Spring Common School Construction Loan, and we're requesting $1 million. Those loans carry a 4% interest rate, and we would pay this loan back over 20 years.
Just in time to get new carpet?
Pretty much, yes.
Probably not.
No.
I did want to point out that while we're requesting the loan up to $1 million, the actual amount of the loan will only be what's needed to do the carpet project. So I don't anticipate it being $1 million. Unlike a bond sale where we say we're selling $5 million bond and we receive $5 million, this gives us permission to request reimbursement of expenditures up to $1 million. But if the carpet project was only $900,000, for example, that's all the amount of the loan would be in the end. So we are requesting permission from the board to submit this application to the Indiana Department of Education for the 2019 spring common school construction loan in the amount of $1 million.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Newman, the type of carpet they're putting down, is it kind of like this where it's in the squares and can be, if you have a damaged part, you can replace it rather than having to live with the whole carpet again?
Correct, yes. We're going to go with the squares.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? If
About
not-
time.
Yes. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Reports and information items, 8.01, South Bend Regional Chamber 2019 Salute to Business Capital Investment Award. Dr. Spiker?
When the South Bend Regional Chamber had their Salute to Business back in March, we were recognized with a Capital Investment Award, School City of Mishawaka, and it's related to the $13 million capital improvement that we did as part of the 2016 referendum. So all of you that voted for the referendum and all of you that led the referendum up here, good work. We're being recognized for adding to the vitality of the community and for making sure that our neighbors have good jobs, and you know, a great deal of that work was done through union contractors as well as others, but a lot of great outcomes, and I'm very, very proud of the work that all of you have done. Thank you.
Item 8.02, soccer program at John Young Middle School beginning 2019-2020 school year. Mr. Huppert.
Dr. Spiker, President Curry, school board members, it seems appropriate that when we're making so many big announcements about the future and having a vision that we talk about a great opportunity tonight. Mishawaka Middle School Soccer in 2019. And this is to make middle school soccer a sport, not a club sport, but make it a sport along with football, cross country, basketball, volleyball, wrestling, and track. The vision that we have is to have separate team for boys and girls, 7th and 8th grade team, and also include in that first year 6th graders. If we're going to have a startup team, we feel like 6th graders need to get a jump start, and we also feel that our program is that far behind. Transportation would be provided for away games by Mishawaka schools, and the question why, in my opinion, and talking to coaches, our athletic director at the middle school, our varsity coaches and people in the community, it's time, in fact overdue. I've watched our varsity teams compete, they play hard, but the skill level, we're just a little bit behind. I've watched us lose players to other schools, and some of the comments have been, well, Mishawaka doesn't take soccer seriously. And when we looked at the P project in 2018, the month of April, the quote was, boys soccer has no set feeder system within SCM, and I've provided that in your materials. Girls soccer, the quote was, there is no set feeder program for this sport. This will change that. There's also major interest from community members. If you've watched our park department on Saturday, if you ever drive by here, this place is full of cars. I put down here 220 players. Actually, I talked to Mr. Blasco today, and it's 230 players playing on Saturday mornings. That's ages 3 through 11. So those kids 3 through 11, once it gets to 11, we really don't provide anything until they get to high school. And that's what middle school soccer would do. All NLC teams, they're high school teams, they have a middle school team or a club. And of course, our high school is going to the Northern Lakes Conference in 2020. Where would we play? Well, this would be a fall sport, so it'd be the same as the varsity boys and girls. Baker Park wouldn't be able to handle the middle school team and the high school team. Our proposal would be to use the old high school soccer field that would be here at Emmons Elementary. When that field is mowed properly, like it is right now for the Saturday mornings, it's a great field. In fact, I had one coach today tell me that he had chills thinking about building a program at a place where this used to be the high school field. And now we're going to take that and make it a place that is our junior soccer program. The field's in good condition, scoreboard needed, but in soccer you don't have to have a big fancy scoreboard. I've seen a lot of places that use flip cards, and to get us started we could do that. Timing could be done on the field until we had a proper scoreboard. Locker rooms, I've talked to Brad Addison, the principal of Emmons, and he's on board with us using the locker rooms here at Emmons after school. He doesn't feel that it would impede on anything that they have for elementary sports after school. Thinking about what we need, a boys soccer coach, it could range anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000, and that's looking at what volleyball and wrestling coaches have. A girls coach would be the same stipend, and of course that would come from the corporation. Uniforms would be a huge expense. I've talked to our rep from Under Armour, Kevin Drazier, and the estimate for 40 players with 20 boys and 20 girls, an estimate with shirts, shorts, and socks, and that would be for one set of uniforms, would be $1,806. But the great thing about Under Armour, as we explained a couple months ago, when Under Armour, when we're starting a sport, they give $1,000 back. So this would be starting something. It would be the first time we would be getting soccer uniforms. So that $1,800, we would have $1,000 in give back money that Ashley Litwin could use for other uniforms or for the soccer program. So that price would include one color team name on front, color numbers, and numbers on back, and that's from Under Armour. We would need 2 nets for the big goals. We have nets out there right now in the big goals. There's some holes in them. They wouldn't be appropriate. They're nice for practice, but they wouldn't be good for games, so that would be about $500. Both frames for the nets would need to be welded or repaired. I've looked at them. You can use them, but there's just a few small places where they've come apart. And I think I can talk with Mr. Faulkner and we can do that with operations. They're not so far disrepaired that we couldn't make that happen. We would need soccer balls. The varsity coaches told me that we could pass some soccer balls down and we could also buy some new balls, but an estimate there would be about $600. So when you're talking about referees for 5 home games, workers, there would be anywhere from $8,900 to $9,200 that would start in year 1. So we have some ways to get it started, but if you'd like to ask any questions at this point or have any comments, in talking with Ashley Litwin, we have a plan that it was important to be on tonight just because a lot of the soccer coaches, a lot of the principals, a lot of those middle school athletic directors will be off for the summer. So if we were going to take this forward, we need to get a schedule for next year and make a plan for next year. So we're confident that we can do that, and we have a plan for the future. Some of the interest that our varsity coaches got, they had call-out meetings at the middle school and at our elementary schools. And of course, sometimes you have a call-out meeting and kids just come to the call-out meeting because they want to get out of class. I mean, let's be honest, but when we asked who would be interested in joining a middle school soccer team, we had 117 girls and 89 boys come to those meetings. So our next step would be, okay, are you really serious? We're going to buy you a uniform. We need your parents here for a meeting, and we want to take this to the next step. And so if you're going to do that, then we would have some real numbers and not just the estimated numbers.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Well, I'm super excited because my daughter plays soccer for the Junior Irish, and she can continue through club, or she starts high school this fall. So it should have been 2 years ago. I'm a little late to the game, but I have a 6th grader who is also playing soccer. So hopefully this will be a good program, and we'll have good coaches, and it will be successful, so that we can compete in the soccer realm at Mishawaka, because we aren't. So I'm excited for that. But good luck.
Thank you. And one of the first comments I remember you saying to me was, what are you going to do about soccer?
Yeah.
And I can remember that in one of those meetings. And after evaluating and looking at it and looking at some of the other programs around here, a lot of places play club soccer. The Mishawaka demographic, we don't have a lot of kids who are going out and spending a lot of money playing club soccer, but now they're getting started. The Parks Department's doing an amazing job. And if we don't take that opportunity with those kids who are playing and give them another opportunity, and that's not to pull away from another sport. The last thing we want to do is hurt cross country or hurt football, but to give those kids the opportunity who love that sport to play that sport is what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Item 8.03, update on the Mishawaka High School Master Plan and next steps. Mr. Newman, Mr. Faulkner, and perhaps representative from Abonmarch.
Good evening, President Curry, Dr. Spiker, members of the board. Over the course of the past few months, a school city administrative team, including Dr. Spiker, Mr. Newman, Mr. Calderone, Mr. Ross, Mr. Brew, and myself, along with our contracted engineer firm of Abonmarch, have continued to work diligently through dialogue and working sessions for the Mishawaka High School 10-year master plan. Throughout the planning process, Abonmarch has worked also very closely with City of Mishawaka, their engineering department and their planning department, to make certain that any plan that comes to fruition meets their goals and objectives from the city's perspective. Though there are several phases that will eventually evolve within the master plan, the number one priority, phase one, is to enhance the safety of our students and staff who drive to the campus, get dropped off, or walk to the high school. In addition to the overall safety, the goal is to improve traffic patterns and flow, reduce cars from stacking like they do on Lakeway, double parking when they drop off and when they pick up. And another component in the phase one is the design and the completion of the high school west entrance secure vestibule. Over the course of the past several weeks, the administration has received several conceptual renderings that address the priorities that just mentioned, and collectively agreed upon one that would fulfill our goals and objectives from the school city side and the city of Mishawaka, and one that we felt confident to bring forward to this board for approval and consideration. If phase one planning has school board support tonight, recommendation for approval with updated cost estimates will be presented for approval at the June 12th school board meeting. And here tonight is the team from Abonmarch, and I've been very personally impressed with them. Not only are we getting that the professionalism and the expertise from them, but several of them live in the neighborhood. They have kids that go to school, so we're getting it from both sides. We're getting it from the professionalism, the expertise, and the heartfelt too. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to the Abonmarch team and have them blow you away, because I don't want to be a spoil alert here, but I was very impressed earlier today, so I hope you guys are too. Daryl?
Good evening, and thank you for having us tonight. My name is Daryl Knipp. I'm a vice president with Abonmarch, and have enjoyed watching the progress this administration and this board has made for the last few years. I've had two children who have graduated from high school. My youngest is a freshman, and it's real encouraging to see the improvements and the progress we've made. It's really exciting. I hope we can be a part of the good things that you're doing. We have assembled a talented team of planners and architects, landscape architects and engineers for this project to help with the planning and implementation of the high school master plan. With me tonight are planner Mike Huber, our architects, two of our architects, Arvin Delacruz and Troy Homenchuk. Mike will discuss the process we went through, and Arvin will present the design and recommendation tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having us here again. I'm Mike Huber, senior planner with Abonmarch. And there was a very thorough introduction to the project. I think in terms of laying out the approach that we took and our understanding of the tasks, it really was about kind of making sure and enhancing the safety of the students and looking at how kids get into and out of school. That task one, that primary task, which is really about traffic circulation and student safety. Our approach to this project, we wanted to make sure that we engaged the team from the school system and from the city at the beginning. We wanted to do due diligence and fact finding and making sure we're understanding the issues thoroughly and existing conditions and what the current situation is. And then we went back and we created multiple options and we presented those options to the stakeholder team. And we did that in a very interactive process. And it was as learning for us as it was for, I hope, the stakeholders in that we got great feedback in the options that we developed and we presented, and we were able to really refine to the preferred option. And then we're in the third phase tonight where we're bringing some preliminary findings for the public engagement. We'd like to hear from you guys, and we anticipate a neighborhood meeting as well where we can get some additional public input before we really make the final changes and recommendations to the final plan to bring back to you. As was talked a little bit about, we did a really thorough job we tried to do a really thorough job in understanding the situation. In addition to our meetings and understanding the issues, we did some research in the traffic volumes, MACOG traffic volumes and those kind of things. But we also as a team came out and counted on March 18th and observed how this happened in the morning. And it was really eye-opening, I think, for a lot of us. So the chart up there kind of shows you what we found in terms of how many cars were coming from where, how many people walking or getting off the bus were walking from where, and where those vehicular and pedestrian conflicts really do start to happen. And so this was really kind of where we started to formulate how we wanted to approach this project. And what was really clear for us, and given the task, and how we tried to approach this and really inform how we approach the situation was really trying to make sure we create this hierarchy of safety. We want to make sure those in the most vulnerable positions, the pedestrians, those riding the buses, they had the most protected access. And then those who were, parking from students who had to actually walk through the parking lot to get to the front entrance, and then the people dropping off in the cars, they're the most protected, so we kind of put them at the bottom. You saw in the chart where we identified the key conflict areas, and in looking at our approach, our circulation objectives really did come down to, and this is in a kind of prioritized list, pedestrian safety, focus on that first. Reduce the congestion that happens primarily on Winger and at those Lincoln Way and Homeland Avenue intersections, and then look at how we might be able to revise some of the parking strategies to help define some of that better and provide better access for parkers, for staff, and for students. This is another visualization of kind of those key areas. So when we came to our approach, the preferred option, we presented a number of options, but this is kind of where we landed. And the key concepts here, the key elements to this, were to really try to create and break up that cluster of congestion in front of the school on Winger Avenue. One of the key components is we wanted to close Winger Avenue and use that right away, maybe to expand the parking a little way, and really make it about the pedestrians and make sure the kids had a safe way into that revitalized vestibule entrance. We also wanted to make sure we tried to break up the drop-off and pick-up zones to try to intercept traffic from the directions they came from, so that we're breaking it up and we're not concentrating everybody in one single place. We're providing opportunities in different areas and reducing the amount of traffic that's trying to access those. That does two things. It creates less intensity at one common place, but it also helps us alleviate that stacking that happens out on Lincoln Way and those kinds of things. And then, again, we really wanted to make sure the pedestrian walkways and across Lincoln Way, across Homeland, things like lighting, making sure those sidewalks are wide and they're safe, and really calling attention to those issues to make sure those students could get there. There were four kind of primary components that we looked at. One is that pedestrian improvement piece that I just referenced, really making sure that we have that entryway working for the safety of the students and making sure that kids don't have to walk in front of cars in order to get to the school entrance. If you see even from the center, there's sidewalks that bring you up to the front without having to cross, without having cars cross in front of you, and all of the different areas have have direct access to the front entrance. The second kind of key component of this was the creation of this central entry corridor. This central entry corridor does a couple things. It allows us to create a really nice gateway and vista into the newly renovated entry vestibule there, but it also allows us to stack 36 cars, double stacked in that entry corridor. Plus we have some additional stacking on Indiana Avenue. We're creating a special lane so those cars aren't waiting in traffic, they're out of traffic. So we can park another dozen, stack another dozen cars there. So in total, we're stacking close to 50 cars, which we know from the numbers we're getting about in every 15 minutes we're getting about 50 cars through, so they're able to stack and not have to go out onto Lincoln Way Avenue. Similarly up at Homeland, this is what we observed. This is what cars are kind of doing now. So we're creating that kind of off-street lane to allow that parking to happen safely. One of the key issues we had in terms of conflicts with the existing setup is Winger is north one way, and they don't stop. And so you've got kids trying to walk across there, getting out of their cars and crossing there, and those cars aren't stopping. The cars coming from east and west on Homeland, so this really addresses a lot of that and helps those cars have that safety, and it keeps them out of the flows of traffic. We're proposing a new option, a new entryway off of Lincoln Way in the front of the school. This is to help us intercept the traffic coming from the east, so it's not trying to get around and go to that same place. And this also helps us achieve a nice defined parking space potentially for staff and visitors within that, but we're separating the drop-off pickup area from that. We're separating the entrance and the exit to eliminate congestion on Lincoln Way. We've got a designated transpo bus area to kind of help with the safety there as well. And in the future, we also created a little accessible drop-off at kind of the first entry there to serve the auditorium for folks who maybe are handicap accessible and want to have a little closer access to the doors there. And so the last component, the fourth component of this is really our overall parking strategy. Again, we wanted to maintain the current parking levels that are there now. We've done that. We've achieved that. We've created that north parking lot, and that's allowed us to utilize the central corridor access piece and still maintain those parking densities. But we feel it flows much better broken up like this because it's easier for you to access whichever direction you're coming from, and you don't have to all try to get into the same space at the same time. So it breaks it up and minimizes that congestion. So now I'm going to let Arvind talk a little bit about some of the aesthetic components of the project.
Good evening. Thank you for having us this evening. One of the things we just wanted to point out was what you actually see as part of this collaborative approach is kind of a culmination of probably 12 to 13 different schemes that, again, with working with in-house staff as well as school city staff, came out with what Mike was talking about, a very comprehensive way, even if you distill it, right? How do we actually have pedestrian traffic that's in a safety zone separate from vehicular traffic, but at the same time, they have to live in the same space, right? So the next series of slides is how do we begin to look at this in an experiential way, looking at what does it look like, paying homage to the architecture of the high school, which is really iconic building in the community, but also introducing some safety factors. So one of the things we wanted to make sure was the sign that's located there, how do we work with that in this sequence? Again, off of Lincoln Way. And how do we play nice, shall we say, with the improvements that's happening there right now? So here's a series of slides, again, looking at as we're heading westbound on Lincoln Way. Here's where actually we would turn in right here and have the drop-off near the school, and this is the south parking lot that is located here as well. Transpo bus location there. So you can see how we begin to really break up the traffic patterns and really allow the parents and the drop-off zones to work with where they're already coming from. Along here is Indiana. So an opportunity to really enhance this west entrance was really a high priority for the design team, and as well as looking on Lincoln Way again from the southwest corner. Here's another view. Again, this is Indiana. This is Homeland, and the Homewood, the 3 spots that are located here with a main thoroughfare. And one of the things we wanted to do is really celebrate some certain facades of the building. Again, looking at such an iconic piece of the community, celebrate perhaps another location for a Mishawaka High School sign, working in conjunction with anchor pieces. And so you can see here, you could almost say this was how it was supposed to be, or this is how it was built years ago. But looking at how do we work with the traffic patterns, here's a sign, or rather the stacking opportunities. And once you get out of the car, obviously on the passenger side, that student can get on that pathway without ever crossing traffic ever again until they get into the school. Here's another view of that zone coming in from Indiana. And again, these parents could be picking up at the end of the day or dropping off as they go westbound onto Indiana as well. Here's a view of what we thought could be an opportunity to really enhance this entryway. This right here is actually a ramp, an ADA ramp that would make the transition between this lower portion, and you see the stairs right there. This is actually a nice view, as you can see the stacking opportunities. This has a nice gracious corner so that even with big SUVs or minivans can make that transition right along there. As well as you can see here that if there's students coming in on that sidewalk, they can get to the entrance without ever crossing the path of vehicular traffic. Another view, looking at that main entrance. This is almost, let's say at the end of the year, this is where pictures will be taken, because these stairs actually act almost like natural risers with that iconic facade. So if you can imagine that at the end of the school year, or maybe it's a celebratory first day of school photograph. This next series will actually be just a short video that we'll play for you. Kind of, again, gives an overall feel of the proposal that's in front of the board. So one of the things that we wanted to address is giving this initiative a campus feel. Obviously, it's a destination point. It needs to be able to hold a lot of cars, but at the same time, how do we balance that with some trees, with some landscaping, so it does not feel like one big parking lot, right? In that sort of feel. So here, being able to break that up with landscaping, again, this what we propose to be an iconic entrance to the high school, as well as being able to look at home games or any time of the year, whether you have a sporting event or a concert at the school, and be able to break up the parking that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a couple. I live on Indiana, so this is going to affect my everyday life. So I just have a few questions just to kind of mentally prepare myself. So you're going to widen Indiana on the school city side to create a right turn lane, right? Is that what
Correct.
you guys are saying?
Stacking and right turn lane, correct.
Okay, cool. I love the idea of moving people away from cars. That makes me very, very happy. However, I'm still very, very concerned about students crossing Lincoln Way. Because now that it's one lane each way with a turn lane, I've been on it lately, people are still aggressive. Is there a way to work with the city or something in that capacity to put a pedestrian light there? It's that one that's like one light and it's got two little lights, and if it flashes red, you have to stop. I think that's really important?
Yeah.
Possibly. We've talked to the city a little bit about a Hawks Light, a pedestrian crossing. It's still a state road also, so that's a possibility. What we didn't mention is that we've also been talking to the city about the lighting. The lighting levels are pretty woeful out there. I've been driving westbound. You don't even see people crossing Lincoln Way sometimes until they're right in front of headlights. It's pretty scary.
But at 3:30, when there's 200 students out there, I mean, it's still light out at 3:30.
Right. Well, that's in the afternoon. But where I was going with that was in the morning. I think the city is working with us to try to replace lights and increase the lighting levels for us out there.
Okay.
So that will help in the mornings. The Hawks Light is a possibility. The other thing we want to point out, though, is part of the goal was to, Lincoln Way has a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
We were trying to peel some of that off before it gets to this conflict point. So that's why we have one of the entrances on the east and the other one coming up Indiana. So it's a small percentage of the traffic, but it's a lot of the traffic that creates that congestion in the morning and in the afternoon. So we're trying to remove some of that to help with that crossing also.
Okay.
I think maybe it will help though with the additional parking. Students will not be parking on 3rd and 4th Street anymore and on all the side roads and then
Yeah.
walking themselves across Lincoln Way, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because they are, it's hard to believe they're high school students when they're crossing Lincoln Way. So I think that hopefully with the extra parking will take away some of the off-street parking that they're doing now.
Good point.
And is there concern that after Homewood on Indiana, people park on both sides of the street on Indiana? There's only room really for one car to pass?
So we have talked to the city about Indiana also.
Okay.
And under this scenario, it'd likely be parking just on the west side.
Sure.
No parking on the east side.
Okay. And then what about the traffic pattern on Mishawaka? So now the way it works is people, go down Wanger to Mishawaka Avenue, and they'll also go, north and south on Indiana and turn onto Mishawaka there. So there's going to be an increased pattern on Mishawaka now, but just from Indiana because you can't go down Wanger anymore, right?
Yes, there'll probably be an increase on Indiana. Pickups on the north side could still go north on Winger, but for the most part, vehicles leaving will either be Indiana or Lincoln Way.
Okay.
I've got a question. You have talked to the city.
Yes.
Have you talked to the neighborhood?
Not yet.
Have you had a neighborhood meeting?
Not yet. That is
Have
part
you
of.
talked to the city councilman that represents that area?
We've talked to the city planner, city engineer, and the mayor. We have their support. We have not talked to the councilman yet. We
Or
wanted
the neighborhood?
Or the neighborhood.
Okay.
That is one of the tasks in our agreement, but we wanted to make sure you guys were supportive of the plan first.
I would hesitate to support the plan unless I understood where the neighborhood, unless I had heard some feedback from the neighborhood. I know early on when we were looking at doing some things on the Mishawaka High School property, we opened it up for the neighborhood and brought them into the high school and the library and chatted with them. And I think that input's important. I hesitate to go to the neighborhood and say, this is what the school board has approved, until I've heard from the neighborhood. I wouldn't approve anything until that interaction occurred.
Well, I don't think we're being asked for approval tonight.
I understand
It's
that.
just a concept that this is something to go out and
Concept
discuss
is
with the
fine,
neighborhood.
but I would like to hear some input from the neighborhood.
Certainly,
And the
we-
people that represent the neighborhood.
Yeah, we fully agree. That was part of our proposal, is that
Right.
there has got to be a public engagement to get the neighborhood
Sure.
support. The question is, do you go to the neighbors first or the school first? We felt it didn't make sense to share something with the neighbors that
There's
this
an
group did not
intense
support.
use of that road on the west side. Intense use.
Yeah.
And has a dramatic impact on the neighborhood. One of the things that you could talk about is possibly taking some of that intensity and putting it on school property. It would take away from the parking,
Right.
but
When is your plan to talk to the community, or the council and the neighborhood? Do you have a plan to do those meetings?
We do not have it scheduled. We wanted to see if you guys agreed with this approach first, and then we will schedule that.
I would schedule that.
Yeah, I would hate to take this, ultimately, if you're gonna make any changes to the traffic patterns, it's gotta go before the city council. And wouldn't it be nice if there were 300 people there?
Sure.
In favor of it, as opposed to opposed?
Certainly. We understand the sensitive nature of any changes to traffic pattern, neighborhoods, so we certainly would like to reach out and gather their support.
And I don't think any of us are discounting something needs to happen. Something has to fix the safety issues, right? But we just have to make sure that we've crossed all of our T's and dotted all our I's first.
Certainly.
Before the school board would stamp anything, the city needs to be on board.
I think the proposal is nice, but I am really concerned about the intensity of use on the west side.
Okay.
That may be the best way to do it. I don't know. I'd like to see other options. I'd like to hear from the neighborhood.
Are you talking about Indiana Avenue, Bill?
Yeah. You're taking a lot of traffic through there now.
It's going to be 107 cars from the north, and then they're splitting up 319 between the two entrances. So that's a lot of cars going down Indiana Avenue, and it's not a big street.
We're dramatically changing the impact on the neighborhood. I lived this for 16 years on the city council, and I know what potentially can happen. And those are not fun public meetings.
Well, the plan was to present something to you folks, to get your feedback, to see if this was what you liked, what you didn't like. And so the next step will be the process of continuing dialogue with the city and continuing dialogue in the neighborhood. Just so you know, we have already had dialogue in the neighborhood with some of the homeowners whose properties could be impacted by this particular design. Those discussions have already taken place.
That's not what I heard. That's not what I just heard, Dean.
Well, they have.
Okay.
Mike has had them, and he can speak for himself, as recently as the last 48 hours.
Matter of fact, it was in the last 6 hours.
To clarify, that's the houses that we will be
The 4
purchasing, so
houses.
they won't be affected by the traffic.
Correct. There is one house in particular on the southwest corner of Wenger and Lincoln Way.
Wenger and Lincoln.
It's a duplex. And there is an interest, obviously, if the price is right, and we'd have to go through the appraisals and so forth. There is an interest in letting that property go. So we currently own 224 Indiana Avenue, and the next door to them, Winroots, who are going to be moving into a building trades home. I think that this conceptual plan only had the one house that it impacted at this time that we would need.
So the next step, obviously, is to continue dialogue with the city, make sure that we're communicating with the right civic leaders, and having a neighborhood meeting. And as you said, we did that when we did the improvements at the high school, had a very good meeting. And so we will take those steps, and then hopefully many of you can be at that meeting. And, we can decide where we go from there. In fairness to Abonmarch, we did look at a lot of other iterations
Yes, we did.
other than this particular one. As you all know better than I do, there aren't a lot of good solutions to deal with pedestrian safety, separating cars, and doing all those kinds of things because we're operating in an urban setting and we're operating in a city, in a neighborhood. And so we absolutely have to look at our best options and see what those are and bring those back for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Item 8.04, the April financial report. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Curry, Dr. Spiker, members of the board. Per usual, if there are any questions from board members, please feel free to ask. It's starting with the education fund, ended the month with $3.7 million. Again, most expenditures are on track with how I budgeted them. So I really don't have much to elaborate on there with the education fund. The debt funds, again, not much activity in there. There will be in June. Our operations fund, similar to the education fund, my expenditures, salaries and benefits in particular, are fairly in line with how they've been budgeted. And I think really the only other fund to point out is probably the self-insurance fund, as we did gain. We've been experiencing some very, very, very good claim numbers in our health insurance, and that's showing up greatly here in the self-insurance fund as we're back almost to just over $240,000 in that fund at the end of April. So that's certainly starting to trend in the direction that we want it to. And then again, at the end of the report, I once again provided the combined education and operations numbers for the board to take a look at. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Newman. Move on to item 8.05, School City Mishawaka Safety Report. Hollenbeck.
Thank you, President Curry, Dr. Spiker, and members of the board. We want to bring you up to date on all of our school safety initiatives that have happened this school year. First of all, I would like to thank my collaborators on the safety team, and that's Ken Kellenbach, Jessica Stultz, Daniel Paston, and I'd also like to thank Alex Newman and Brian Rigler, who have overseen us in this task throughout the whole year. I think we've said before, Dr. Spiker has said before, that our two priorities are learning and safety. But there's one thing that we know is that kids can't learn unless they know and feel like they're in a nurturing, safe environment. So safety is incredibly important, as it is for parents who want their kids to come home to them at night. It's our worst fear, and we have to do something, lots of things, to take care of safety. But it's like insurance, it may or may not work. So we'll just go through all these as quickly as we can, but we wanted to bring you up to date on what we've done this year. So next of all, oh, I have to do it? No, I'll do it if I can. Okay, first of all, there were 2 safety surveys that were done. And I want to thank Corey because he was a big help on both of these. We did our first safety survey with principals. We had 100% participation with them. Now, how does it work? Thank you. The key findings in this were that 9 out of 10 agreed or strongly agreed that their school is safe for staff, students, and visitors. 10 out of 10 agreed or strongly agreed that the climate is safe and positive for everyone.
We identified opportunities to increase security by ensuring all exterior doors meet the highest safety standards. We received positive feedback on our school resource officers and positive feedback on our visitor check-in and welcome centers, which were projects done the year before and were very instrumental to us getting started with a really nice, safe, and secure buildings. There was also a parent engagement survey that was done by the curriculum department, and they ask parents, does your child feel safe at school? 92% of parents who responded agreed or strongly agreed with this statement. We felt really good about that. I want to mention that we are always in ongoing conversations with parents, with students, with administrators, with the community about safety. We take their thoughts into consideration, and you'll see that next year we'd like to do even more of that. One of the first things that we did that we thought was very tedious and hadn't been touched in a long time was to update a 61-page safety and emergency preparedness manual that we have. There were changes made, and the whole team really helped and worked long hours on this. And we feel like it is an ongoing living document that will have changes made all the time, but right now it's been really updated, and we also have new guidelines that were included on lockout and lockdown terminology and procedures, active shooter response, emergency contact protocol, emergency text message groups, and updated floor plans and other information for all of our first responders. And now Ken will talk more about how these surveys translated into new technology and hardware and other training and other things.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about safety tonight. The next slide here talks about surveillance cameras. We have 476 surveillance cameras that were updated in the last year and a half. In our corporation, all the doors and locks at our schools will be touched with new mechanism or new doors completely. I think there's 1,140 exterior doors, 5,500 doors overall that are touched in some way. One of the main things are the classrooms. All will be able to be locked and unlocked from the inside. They will no longer have to go to the hallway to use a key to lock the doors. This is in the process now. It's not completed. They're working that as we speak. So, door alarms for all schools. I have to explain this a little bit. They all are alarmed already. What this means is whoever's in charge at the schools for the school check-in, they get alerted if a door opens up. So anytime during the day, if a door opens up, it comes on their computer, it makes a little noise for them. They have to acknowledge it before it'll turn off. So someone will know that there's a door open that should not be open. We've added 110 two-way radios this past year. Most of those went to, or all of them went to the junior high and elementary level. The high school, a year prior, received all new radios. We've upgraded helping access into our buildings with the police and fire, all their fobs that they carry, that they have issued through their city, we have in our system. So any door that has a card reader, they can enter in case of emergency. We've been upgrading LED lighting as we go. If anytime lights go out, mainly what I'm talking about here is exterior lighting, like parking lots, gate areas along the buildings. We've also added some that we didn't have originally. Additional services, Safe School Helpline. This is 24/7. Many ways to access that. You can access it through the computer, your phone. You can call.
Has it been used at all?
It has been used.
maybe not like you thought it would be. I think we've had about 16 uses of it. However, that could be a good sign as well. One of the things we're worried about when we did this was we didn't want people to think that just use this. Our school counselors and social workers were a little worried that students wouldn't feel comfortable coming to them. They would just use this all the time. But I think with the amount that we're seeing, that I think our students do feel comfortable going and speaking with teachers, coaches, social workers, and I think that's a good sign as well. We had a safety audit that was mandated through the state this year. We were successful with that. That took probably about 3 months to get through, and then they did an on-site visit. Workman's comp, we know in the past, last couple, 2 or 3 years, we've had a lot of claims. We've had a private company do an assessment. We also had our insurance company had a representative, Director of Operations, Mike Faulkner, walk the schools with them, and we found out that actually we're doing a pretty good job. We had some small infractions that we took care of right away. He was happy, just said that he believes it has to be a culture change of just being conscientious about safety. We've added weather radios to all our buildings. Also, sports complexes have them for safety, for storms. Those were donated by St. Joseph County Emergency Management. Part of the survey, we're trying to determine where we needed more training, things like that. Right now, we have 4 staff that are trainers for CPI. They trained this year, the past year, 26 staff members in CPI. We added 10 staff members to school safety specialist training. It's a 3-day course throughout the year. Once they get that, there's continuous education that you have to do each year to keep your certification. We have 28 staff members actually that have been certified through the state with school safety. Some of the other training that we've been to is some FBI training that was at South Bend Police Department this year, Homeland Security training at Notre Dame. Penn put on a active shooter exercise. This was something that was put together over a whole year period with agencies throughout the county, including hospitals, police, fire, just about anybody. Counselors were involved. Everybody was in the school corporations in the area were invited to be involved. We were involved with that, with the meetings and participation. We also attend quarterly meetings with St. Joe County School Safety, Safe School Commission, I mean. This is something that we need to do in order to file for safety grants through the state of Indiana. We have to be a participant in this. Parking lots, pickup drop-off. We've already discussed some of this tonight. This is an important topic, not just with Mishawaka High School, but with other schools as well. The main other schools that have some difficulty is John Young Middle School, Liberty Elementary, Twin Branch Elementary, and Emmons Elementary. We're looking to have those a priority as well in the near future.
Did you go past one? Okay, yes. Also, we take part in the monthly principals meetings. It's now the Leadership Academy. Principals come in, and we have been able to talk to them and use them. All of our school principals are school safety specialists. They've all been trained, so we kind of speak the same language, which is really nice. But we provided an active shooter training video produced by the St. Joe County Prosecutor's Office to them, and then they were able to share them with their staffs. They were an active part in the safety manual updates that I talked about earlier and the lockdown and lockout terminology. One of the big things that especially the elementaries have done is limited the number of entrances and exits at their schools during pickup and drop-off times. This is a real safety measure that has proven to be a big difference for schools to keep the kids safe. And we've formalized more of a debrief process following emergency events. So we may do it at the district level if it's a major concern. The building may do a debrief afterwards, but also at the classroom level. So when there's fire drills, you bring your kids back into the class and you say, now what would have happened had you been in the bathroom when this happened? Or what would you have done if you were eating lunch? So all the way down to the kids are thinking about their own building, their own classroom, what can they do to keep themselves safe? The administration center, we added a welcome center, as you all know, and safety protocol here. We've put control access between Emmons Elementary, the museum, and the administrative center, and we also have security at school board meetings. And now Ken's going to talk about looking ahead to the next school year and the things that we have on our radar to make changes.
Well, one of the things we'd like to do is go digital with something that's integrated with school safety management that would include all our emergency preparedness items. We could use it for drills. You can use it for real-life crisis. You would have this student information. It would be integrated with whatever student information software that we have, so it can work right with it. We can do reports, reunification. If we have to evacuate and go somewhere, it would help us reunify the students with their parents and keep track of it digitally. It would also, we'd like to also replace, get one that's all together and replace the school check-in system that we have now. That way, part of that, if we have to evacuate, it would also have anybody that was visiting our schools that we have checked in. We would be aware with this when we left. Some of the system, Jessica has found a system that has all these things together. It's really impressive. It also alerts first responders. It gives you that, they touch a button. So not only does the whole school know right away, but first responders would be texted as well and let them know. So it really speeds up the process. We'd like to, that's part of that emergency response time to help that. But also regular meetings. We've got enough school safety specialists. We want to make teams at every school that I would meet with on a regular basis, so they would give me their thoughts and what they need to change. And then also upgrade the PA systems in all our schools. Part of that, making sure that the phones can connect right with our PA systems if needed. Also, there's a module out there that administrators that have radios could link right from their radio to the PA system if needed. A big part of it, everything's been, as far as safety lately, has been, hardening the schools. Kind of the big push here recently is going to be the social and emotional training with emphasis on crisis prevention and management, getting to know your students and recognizing issues, and getting the help that's needed before a huge crisis happens, and that's something we really want to look into. Part of the school safety teams, maybe start including school families, support staff with them as well. Maybe having some town hall meetings to engage the community with some school safety. Having student advisory groups to include safety. Wanted to mention the whole child workshop on June 18th and 19th, which could also involved with some of the safety. And also come back with some follow-up surveys to see if any thoughts have changed since the last ones that we did.
If I could make a comment, almost 5 years ago when I got on the school board, I asked one simple question, and that was, what was our safety program? And I was told, well, we'll have to pull it out of a filing cabinet and get the dust off of it. And we've come so far since in the last 5 years, and I'd like to thank, Dean, I'd like to thank you because it starts at the top. It really does. And Ken, I mean, you have added such a level of professionalism to our safety program. It's just unbelievable. I think this is a testament to what the entire team has done. And there would be a lot of parents in this community that would be proud to see something like this. It would be nice to share this with everybody in the community. It's nice to see. And of anything that I've experienced over the last 5 years, I'm the proudest of this. Thank you.
Thank you to the school board and to the community for providing $5 million so that we could do these things. Because without that support, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank all of you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Final item on the agenda, 11.01, public announcements. The public is advised that all School City of Mishawaka schools and offices will be closed on Monday, May 27, 2019 for the Memorial Day holiday. The celebration of excellence to honor all School City of Mishawaka employees will take place on May 28, 2019 at 5 p.m. at the Holiday Inn Conference Center. The last day for School City of Mishawaka students is Friday, June 7, 2019, and the last day for teachers is Monday, June 10, 2019. The 142nd Annual Mishawaka High School Commencement will be held on Sunday, June 9, 2019 at 4 o'clock p.m. in the East Gym. The next regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees will be held on Tuesday, June 12, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the Administrative Center here at 1402 South Main Street, Mishawaka, Indiana. Is there anything else to come before the board? In that case, we are adjourned.